So how are things?
Things are alright, thank you.
So what do you want to explore?
In everyday life, you know, going to work, coming home, blah, blah, blah. There's a certain amount of, I suppose in many ways you can knowingly or unknowingly escape how you're feeling, can't you? You can distract yourself, you can, I don't know, if you're feeling a bit down, you go and watch TV. You don't necessarily stay with how you feel. And we use all sorts of coping mechanisms, I suppose, in many ways. That you know, perhaps that you shouldn't or shouldn't. I mean, I'm not making a judgment, but when I'm playing golf, it's like there's no escape from how I'm feeling, and like it heightens absolutely everything I feel about myself. And you know, to the point, I even wondered last week whether I play golf because I enjoy the game, or whether I play because I just want to try and get one area of my life right. I mean, if I take last week's game, as soon as I hit a bad ball, and at the moment the course is revolting, because it's muddy, it's disgusting. I mean, it should be closed really, but it's just, and it was cold and windy and just horrible. And it's not a game. You know, the definition of game is something that's fun, that you go out and enjoy. And I make such heavy weather of it. Such hard work. So intense. If I do something wrong, then I really beat myself up. And then I get to the point where I almost become destructive. So I won't think about the shot, I'll just go up and hit the ball. And of course it then completely... I lose all balance. I mean, it's really sort of extreme what goes on. And then, of course, I mean, last week I was playing with two guys and another girl, and she was being very constant, playing very well, because she was sort of in her own zone, and she was just playing, and she's the same handicap as I am, and that almost made it worse, because there was someone doing what I should be doing, and I was being like this completely I mean, this is all inside, it's not showing, but it's completely irrational, slightly crazy, far too intense. So that's one aspect of it. And then there's another aspect to it, which is, you might not be able to deal with them both, but the other aspect is when I'm playing well. It's sort of complete disbelief that I can keep it up for 18 holes. Or even this complete irrational expectation that I should actually be able to play brilliant 18 holes. I sort of compromise myself. You know, when I'm playing well and I've got a good swing going and it's all going okay, it's like it falls apart because I don't believe I can... It's ridiculous. I mean, then I get really jealous of other people who play better than I do, and it's like, you get to a point where you think, why are you doing this, you know? And I think actually what it does is it just magnifies everything that's going on anyway. Because, you know, you're on the course. There's no escape. You can't turn the television on to get away from it, or you can't talk to somebody, or you can't change what you're doing. You know, you're on the golf course. You're on the golf course probably for about 4 hours.
So it's all heightened.
It's all terribly heightened.
Well, that's great. That's great. So
I need you to walk around with me, actually.
Yeah,
do you know, I think we need to have a session on the golf course.
Yeah, we can do that.
I was thinking the other day when I was playing, I'd love to be able to talk to you as I go round, because it's like right there in the moment. And
well, we can do that. Let's organise something. Yeah. So, you say, you know, when I'm playing, there's no escape from what I'm feeling, and I make such heavy weather. It's all so intense. I get knocked off balance. I become extreme. Crazy almost, see? Let's ask, what is it to make a mistake? What is a mistake?
Oh, disastrous.
Something gone.
You see, make a mistake is absolutely, it's just disastrous, because it's just shows you just how crap you are. You know, you just can't get it right. You just, you know, you go for endless lessons and you practice endlessly, and then you go out there and you make a mistake because you just cannot get it right, despite all your efforts, and you're trying and you're practicing and you're reading and you're watching and the intention, you still go out there and get it wrong. And it's like, I'm useless.
Okay, so
that's the feeling. It's just completely useless.
Completely useless.
And everybody else masters it, but I can't. So
totally
I'm useless, inadequate.
See, so you immediately sort of related it to playing golf. But a mistake is a mistake wherever it is, you see.
Yeah, but you see, you're right. But I just come back to that intensity, because you see...
Oh, we'll come to that. Yeah, I understand.
When you're playing that game, it's like you've got 4 hours to get it right. I know, I can make a mistake in the office, or I can make a mistake. But it's like, I suppose with golf, it's a cumulative mistakes, because, okay, you tee off badly. I mean, I think I won hard, tee off, and I went over there in the bushes. So then immediately you're in grass up high with tufts and wood and stuff, and so you can't get it out of there. So then you make another mistake, and then it dribbles to there, and you hit it again, and then you make another mistake, and then I picked up on the 11th hole. I'd made so many mistakes. So you can't escape it.
So it's not so much that you can't. If you make a mistake, you can just immediately put it right,
or
you can do it again. You know what I mean? If you make a mistake when you're writing a letter, you can just stop.
Yeah.
And you can screw it up, throw it in the bin. You see, or if it's online, it's an email, you can just delete it, start again.
Or I told her, she owed me a certain amount of money yesterday, and she messaged me back and said, actually, I don't owe you that much. I owe you this. I said, oh yeah, my mistake, sorry. No, you're absolutely right. You've rectified.
Yeah, but that's right. But you can, it doesn't, if it's immediate. It's like there is a mistake, you can delete it, write it again, or whatever. Or say, sorry, yes, it was my mistake, and let it go. But on the golf course, you can't just do that. You can't just, when you tee off, you see, and you go into the bush, you can't say, oh, well, let me do that again, and you stand on the tee. Do you follow? You don't stand on the tee and then fire it again. You've got to go to where that it's almost like you've got to then dig yourself out of a hole.
Yeah, literally.
You see, you've got to dig yourself out of a hole. And of course, if you make then another mistake, it takes you further and further away from where you want to be. So in your mind, you see, you have this kind of image, this ideal, this image about where you want, what you want that round to be, how you would like it to be. This is what it is, and of course, there you are at the tee, and immediately it goes awry, and you can't just say, right, I'll do it again.
No.
You've then got to, in a sense, you've got to live with the mistake, you see. You can't just immediately eliminate it and try again. You've got to live with your mistake. Or you can't say, oh, it's not that bad when it's there in the bunker. You know what I mean?
As they say, the ball doesn't lie. And sometimes, when you make a mistake, you know how we all do it, don't you? You sort of think, well, it wasn't completely my fault, or bloody... You sort of...
You rationalise it,
justify it, all these things, but...
Soften it.
All those things, that's right. But the golf ball is there.
That's right.
There's no rationalising. You can think of... All you can think is, well, I hit that badly. Yeah. That's all, And...
No distraction there, you see. You can't just go and whistle and go and sort of go for a walk and go somewhere else and forget about it like you can if you make so many mistakes. If you look, you see that one's making mistakes all the time. In little ways.
Yeah.
One might say the wrong thing to someone, we might be a little bit sharp, or we might make a mistake, like you say, with an accounting situation or whatever. And you can, for some of those things, you can just brush them away. We can defend ourselves from the mistake. We can distract ourselves and get on with something else, you see. Or we can justify it and say, oh, well, it was because of this. We can start to blame. We can say, well, you made me do that, or you upset me. You did this. You were being unfair, and this is what caused me to, lose my rank with you, or whatever. Or what, we can justify it. If you look at the office and you look at the mistakes that you make there, you see.
Yeah, you could say I was rushed or phone rang.
That's right. You can always find a reason that softens the blow.
Yeah.
We're making those mistakes all the time. See? We're making those mistakes every minute of the day, if you look, because we're not, the idea, and that's an ideal, that we can do something absolutely right, absolutely perfect. We can have all the ducks lined up, and we can stand back and think, job well done, you see. If we're a bit of a perfectionist, you can be driven to perfect something, because you want to be seen a certain way in the eyes of others, or you can just be one of those things where you just can't help but try and get it all right all the time. Now, you can never get it perfect. There's no such thing as perfection in this worldly life. Not really. Any more than there's such a thing as having absolute certainty about anything. There will never, the ideal that you can get it absolutely spot on, absolutely right, perfect, with no flaw, nothing to be added, nothing to be improved. If we think there's nothing to be improved, then it's just because we're not seeing far enough or deep enough into the matter under consideration. See? There's always things that can be improved. But the ideal is that we can in some way live a life where we can not make mistakes, where we can always get things right. And then we have to defend ourselves when we don't. Or the alternative is bash ourselves rotten, and tell ourselves what a stupid, foolish, inadequate idiot we are. But of course we don't want to be constantly have that in our face, so we will find ways to avoid truly recognizing the mistakes that we make. Because we see mistakes as being things that need to be avoided, shunned, escaped from. It's like mistakes shouldn't happen, but they do, all the time. In all these hospitals that I've been visiting, you wouldn't believe the mistakes that are made, from the lowly kind of administrator to the top-notch professional specialist. In government, there are mistakes being made all the time. Just a catalogue everywhere you look. I don't think I would challenge you to find one area in human life where people don't make mistakes, because things are never run perfectly. Never. So we have to ask ourselves, if we make mistakes and they're unavoidable, and it's almost as the harder you try not to make a mistake, right, the greater the mistake. We know this, if you're, because my handwriting, because I'm dyspraxic, it's like, and it's a hand-eye coordination thing, right, fine motor skill. It's like my handwriting has always, if I think about it, it becomes a source of a problem for me. You know what I mean? Because it starts to scribble and it becomes illegible, and I've become over-involved in it. Well, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be over-involved in putting pen to paper. You should be more sort of focused on what you're trying to say, right? But it's like I can become over-involved with it, you see. And the harder I try to write nicely, the worse it becomes. And of course you'll find that on the golf course. The more involved you get with any shot that you play, the more stressful it appears. When there's pressure on to come up with a good shot, especially if it's a competitive thing, then the more pressure one has to handle, because if you get over involved in the shot, invariably it's going to go wrong. You're going to spray it somewhere, where you don't want it to be, and that would be in any sport. The over-involvement with anything like that, that's when things go wrong. It's when you get into the flow of play, going with the unfolding, with the movement, rather than trying to control it, and in that way. Because when you do that, it all goes wrong. When you try and interfere and control a process that's in play. So when you're standing there with your clubs, or a club, and you're about to hit that ball, you see, all of a sudden everything tenses up. Because you can't just let it go.
Well, it's also the fear of getting it wrong, so that completely...
Well, of course, when you feel you're going to get it wrong, you work harder to get it right.
Yes.
See? And this is why, isn't it, a lot of people have problems, the putting bit, you know what I mean? All of a sudden their game completely goes and they can't putt to save their life. You see, because there's too much emphasis on holding that ball. But it's a delicate balance, being able to be precise and be in control of what you're doing, but at the same time being able to let go and go with the flow, with your swing. The more involved you get with the swing, the tighter you become, the more you're trying to control your swing. It all goes wrong at that point, because of course one wants to get it right. Now in everyday life, it doesn't seem so bad because, you know, as we say, we can hide our mistakes to ourselves. We can become distracted, there's too much else to do, we can justify it, rationalise it, overlook it, blame, put it out there, project it out there. We have all kinds of wonderful defences that enable us to not see what we're doing. So in the office, of course, if you watch, you'll see that you don't operate in a perfect way. I mean, you're not like an automaton, you're not like a machine that can deliver something in a technical way to the nth degree. Do you know what I mean? It's like where it's absolutely spot on. You know, if it's a piece, a tool being made for some particular part of an engine or a mechanism, and it's got to be absolutely, you know, the measurement, and the machine can do that. We're not machines. So we have to ask ourselves, well, if we live in a mistake-ridden world where it's almost inevitable that mistakes are going to be made, and even if we think we've got it perfect, we haven't. It's only that we're not seeing far enough or deep enough into the subject matter, as we just said. So what is a mistake for? Surely it must have a purpose. It can't just be like we normally think of it, as being something that is an inconvenience. Mistakes have to have a purpose. Well, think of what a mistake is. A mistake is when we have carried out some task, mental, emotional, physical, where we've carried out a task and it doesn't match our expectation of how it should be. I mean, there's some physical mistakes we can make that have dire kind of consequences, obviously. One of my daughter's friends died at the weekend in a car crash, hit a tree. I'm only 20-something, 22, no. Something like that. Very young. He obviously made a critical mistake at that point, you see, that couldn't be rectified. So of course mistakes they all have their consequences, don't they? And some mistakes we can't afford to make, in one sense. But we can think of a mistake as being something that enables us to improve something. A mistake is therefore, it's almost like a guideline, it's showing us something. It's an opportunity to learn so that one gradually masters that particular whatever. See? And continually as we go through our life, we make mistakes and we learn from them. The belief that we can behave in perfect ways and always get it right, if you stand back and look at that, it's ridiculous. And yet we hold this ideal to be the way we feel it should be. Mistakes are there to learn from. So the question now it brings us to, see, what is a mistake? Let's ask another question. What do we mean by feedback? What is feedback?
Well, if you get feedback from something, you're learning something from it, about it, to then perhaps do it differently. So, you know, you might do something and then someone gives you feedback about your presentation, or
or an article that's been written.
Or an article that's been written. Or, I mean, even when you're... Okay, so you make that mistake in golf, but actually where the ball is, if you've played that shot consciously, there should be feedback there. Well, it
is. That's the problem. That's exactly the problem, because you're getting instant feedback.
Yeah.
Whereas in daily life, in the office or whatever, we can, like we've been saying, we can avoid the feedback. And people do. We can blame, we can overlook it, we can distract ourselves from it, we can justify it, rationalize it, you see. All of those things that are preventing us from learning from the feedback that we're getting. Everything has feedback. Everything. That's what a mistake is. A mistake is simply feedback about what we've done, how we've done it, the impact that it's had, or whatever. That's what a mistake. A mistake is feedback. So you can see right there, you hate it. You don't want that feedback. And as we go through our daily life, of course, as we're saying, life is given. Everything is feedback. Everything. Everything. Everything feeds back. So whatever you do has a consequence, has an outcome. And if you're awake to the outcome, that's called feedback. You can then adjust. Much of the time you can adjust what you've just done, what you've just said, what you've just felt, what you've just thought. If you're awake to the feedback. Now, of course, what we say in the chair here is that it's all about seeing. Because when we see clearly what is taking place, something changes. In other words, when we receive the feedback without trying to distort it or resist it or control it, when we receive the feedback and we see clearly what we're doing and how we're doing it, something changes. But of course, for much of our life, we're cocooned in this artificial kind of world that we created for ourselves, where we defend ourselves from feedback. If you don't get that feedback, then you can't really progress and learn from your mistakes. Because those mistakes are the feedback if we're open to them. If we close our mind, if we turn away, if we want to escape from whatever it is, then we are avoiding the feedback that's telling us about our response, our behaviour.
But on the golf course, it's almost unbearable.
Well, that is absolutely right, my love, and that's why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, because you can't escape the feedback. You can't justify your shot and say, oh, it was this or that. You might sometimes say, oh, well, the wind picked up at that point and carried the ball, you know. But generally, like you say, the ball doesn't lie. So when you hit it in the rough, there's the feedback. Now, if you fight and struggle against that, yeah, if you struggle against that feedback, if you just get angry with yourself, beat yourself up or drop down into that despairing place where one just feels, I can't do this, you know, and it sends you off the deep end to just do crazy things, you see, what you're doing is actually you're avoiding facing the feedback. If you face the feedback, if you allow yourself to really see what you're doing, then you can learn from it. If we don't, you see, that's the thing with, if we don't, we say people are not learning from their mistakes. Why not? Because they're not awake to them, because they're not receiving the feedback that mistake is presenting them with. Some people don't like feedback. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that they've got something wrong, or that they've done something silly, or they've said something that's not gone down well, or whatever. They don't want that feedback. They don't want to hear they've given a bad lecture. They want applause. They want to hear all the good stuff all the time. They don't, because it makes them feel good. But of course it's false. It's a false sense of well-being. Let's put it like that. If you want to improve in your goals, you see, you want to strip it all down and look at what you're doing, rather than trying to escape it by using, in a strange kind of way, that's exactly what you're doing. You're using your feelings as a means of escaping. The feelings are rotten. They send you off in a spin. They drive you into thinking and feeling and gnashing your teeth and all the rest of it. But if you look closely, you can see that all of that takes you away from the clarity that's required in order to learn from what you're doing. As long as we get caught up with self-destructive ways of, going at it.
You see, what I thought I was seeing and learning was that I'm a bloody misery. and I can't play golf, and I'm too intense, and I'm hard work, and I'm black.
Well, you are. That's your life much of the time. And that's what you are seeing. You're absolutely right. I do believe that. Because what you're looking at the golf course is what you're looking at in life. But you don't recognise it so easily in life. But all of that, I'm telling you, all of that has become habitual. And it's all habitual. It's not really you. It's all habitual. And it's a way of avoiding and facing up to the feedback of life. You know, someone comes and they tells us, you got this wrong. Oh, God, I've done it. How stupid I am. How could I do it? I've done it so many times. I'm a worthless human being. No one's going to want to be with me or employ me or whatever. I'm just so useless. I'm this, I'm that. I'm going to go and drown myself in a glass of lemonade or whatever. And what we're doing, you see, is all of that keeps us from really looking to see what we've done, receive the feedback and learning from it.
I suppose the mistake I've made, if mistake is the right word, is to see that, what you've just reenacted there, as the feedback. But that's the escape mechanism.
Of course. The feedback is simply what is.
Okay, so give me an example. Something. You know, I've teed off. I mean, I'm using golf because that's where it all comes together for me. And I've gone into the crap on the left-hand side, complete crap, almost impossible to get out of. This was the 11th hole. I already played 10, and pretty average. Some great holes and some rubbish. And every hole I do something wrong so that my score's high. And, you know, I then tee off in the 11th and I go in the crap.
Every hole, you see, every hole, you're not learning from it.
But what is it to learn?
What is there to learn is to bring your attention to what you're actually doing rather than get lost in your feelings about what you're doing. It's almost, dare I say it, although it gives the wrong impression, it's separating out what you're feeling from the game of golf. But like you say, it's a game. It's a skill. It doesn't really require... It's the motion that's getting in the way and preventing you from adjusting your play. Each shot that you made there, no doubt, would have been driven by some crappy feeling that you had that just kept taking you further and further and further into it. See, you weren't playing golf. You were just expressing your feelings, and they were being expressed through the game. You follow? But if you discover how to not do that, put those feelings to one side, and bring your being, if you like, your attention to the game that you're playing, the process, see, not your feelings, then you can play the game and you can enjoy the game. If you're always going round the golf course, just looking at how crap you are and then trying to relate it to the rest of your life and thinking, God, there's a lot of learning to do here, etc., etc., you're right. But you're on the golf course to play golf. It's a game. It's a technical game. Emotions create havoc with technical abilities. Look at we come back to this, don't we? Greg Norman, when he, I don't know which major it was, when he was playing Faldo, wasn't he? And he was ahead, and Faldo caught him, and he went to pieces, didn't he? Completely. Some front runners are like that, you know. Some front runners, when they get out in front, like Tiger Woods, he was always renowned for, if he got out in front, you never catch him. You know what I mean? You never overtake him. I don't know if it's like that today, but that's how it was. But some people, I mean, he's a front runner, but some people, they get out in front and all the nerves come. They can't stay there.
Yeah.
Because of the chasing pack, you know what I mean? And it's all in their head. The game is won and lost in the head. If he just concentrated on his game, then it would have you know, he probably wouldn't have been caught. But he went to pieces emotionally. He just broke up there on that golf course. This is why in lots of sports, ball sports and things, people practice over and over and over and over again. Any sport really, I guess. where you keep practicing and practicing, so you build it in, so it becomes habitual, so it's almost like it will run itself, it's automatic. In other words, you can just do it. We don't even have to think about it. Your feelings get it. If your feelings come in, you just keep them out of it, and you just let your body do what it's been trained to do.
Yeah.
Or you let that technical stuff come through, whether it's on a golf course, whether it's game tennis. You find the same problem if you're playing tennis, because it's immediate feedback.
Yeah.
See, so it really is about, and if we go around the golf course, we can look at this. As we go around, as we go around, we can explore all this. You see, we can take it sort of shot by shot, and we can almost like do a post-mortem, not a post-mortem, because it's right there in the moment, and post-mortems always come later, don't they? And when you're trying to piece together stuff that's already happened and understand it. We're talking about going round and in the moment, waking up to what's taking place. See, and looking at that, and you'll see, when you do that, you'll see how your feelings and your game kind of come into, they clash. You're not playing golf, you're playing with your feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pause there.
Thank you.